good afternoon on what is a cool, grey and cloudy day. It is Monday the 31st of October. I'm in the reading up the nice hot cup of tea. And a parcel to unbox. So, what we've got in here is, just get the knife on this. Is this, which is a large bundle of magazines, copies of the Last Province. So but we can have a look at issue 1. Which was published in October 1992. Now, this is one of many magazines which appeared in the wake of White Dwarf's shift from being a general role-playing and gaming magazine to just being a Games Workshop house organ. So Games Master International, was one Adventure, Fantasy Chronicles. There were various. But this one originated in Scotland, and really come up a period where role-playing was on the cusp of sort of like undergoing almost a die-off in response to Magic the Gathering. But there were some interesting games coming out of the period, as can be evidenced by the advert inside the first page, which is for Over the Edge, one of the first major storytelling games, or storytelling style games. And certainly would be influential on those that would come in the noughties. So once we get past the table of contents, we have Last Word, which is the editorial, and then we have Verbatim, which is it's a page of news snippets. And it's important to remember that before the advent of the internet, we really only got our news about the hobby and what was going on and what was cut through pages of magazines like The Last Province and White Dwarf and Imagine and so on, through company announcements, and we would really ultimately only find out what was actually being released when it hit the shelves of our local friendly gaming store. So here we have rumours, news, information about new releases and so on, as they would have been known at the time. These days we have a much more fluid sources of news and scandal and information. So Pandora's Box is the review section, which I think are basically following the blueprint set by White Dwarf. Kind of go, we have quite a detailed scoring system there. We have a review first of Millennium's End, Nightwalker and the Villiers Fair, followed by Warp World, both of which at the time of this video were highlighted as being amongst the more complex of role-playing games. Tales of the Boat Pal to Floating Vagabond, one of the better offerings from Avalon Hill, a humorous role-playing game, which was a little bit difficult to play in sense of keeping that humour up, but it did try. Special Operations, which was a supplement for Twilight 2000, Merc 2000, and more specifically for Merc 2000. Twilight 2000 was Game Designers Workshop, basically setting which did not follow the apocalyptic path of Twilight 2000. Merc 2000 essentially was mercenary, small operations, special operations in a similar world, but without the nuclear apocalypse. So Sun County, got a review of that. RingQuest Adventures in the Land of the Sun, important role-playing supplement from the period. Followed by, we've got reviews of various World of Darkness books, so Werewolf, The Apocalypse, and Storyteller's Handbook for Vampire the Masquerade, World of Mummy, World of Darkness Mummy, and then Night Stitches Stories and Chasing the Dragon, a couple of adventures for Cyberpunk being very popular at the time. Coriomek, Skirmish Rules and Setting, a popular little miniatures war game that came out that sort of like potential alternative to Warhammer 40,000. inspired in part by aliens, pretty much as Space Hulk was originally. And then we have reviews of Mythos and Mythos Magic. Together, really, one of the role-playing games, one of the last role-playing games that Gary Gygax kind of contributed towards, or major ones, ultimately one of the contributing factors to the downfall of Game Designers Workshop, the other being the Operation Storm source books, which got remaindered. Then we have a review of Socky Hydra, Naughty Hydra, D7s and Bouncing Dice, a review of dice in a magazine. Rare, has to be said. These days you can find reviews of dice almost everywhere, mostly on YouTube, but back then, not so many. Okay, then we've got the first adventure, and then there were none, a Pendragon scenario for beginner knights. Pendragon, always a classic, and has remained the preeminent Arthurian role-playing game. So we've got a 2-page scenario here, accompanied by decent illustrations and a very clear map. So quite a short scenario, but nevertheless likely to be very playable. Divine Natra Vis, which has been an article on, I presume it's going to be on Ars Magica. So it looks quite dense, which is kind of suited Ars Magica, which is a fairly dense setting and system in terms of who you play and what you do as magicians in the 12th century. Fahrenheit 451, book review column, surprisingly lengthy actually. This spreads to 3 pages. And what's interesting is that you have this kind of format, this blueprint, which is set by the heyday of White Dwarfs. So you've got a book review column, obviously named after the burning, the point at which paper will burn, and named also for Ray Bradbury's famous novel. But critical mass, Dave Langer's critical mass in White Dwarf was never longer than a page or so. Here we've got 3 pages. Feels a bit like padding. Noticeably, we have an advert for a local role-playing shop in Edinburgh. Essentially, the editorial team, sales team would have popped around the corner and gone, "Do you want an advert in the paper, in the magazine, and so on?" Revenants, The Way of the Warrior, The Way of Bushido. So an article on essentially Bushido and Oriental role-playing. At that point, the choices in terms of what you played for Oriental role-playing game would have been limited. You would have been looked at Bushido, of course, still in print. Line of the Ninja from Chaosium and Games Workshop would have been the main choices. And thus we have for Cyberpunk Junk. Okay, Cyberpunk being a popular genre back then, Cyberpunk 2020 being the preeminent Cyberpunk role-playing game, just as these days Cyberpunk Red is. And this is an article on addiction, withdrawal, drugs in Cyberpunk, in a Cyberpunk setting, or Cyberpunk role-playing game of your choice. And it's quite an adult subject for the magazine, I suppose. Before we get into when things go wrong, which is essentially errors in gaming, how to fix them, how to cope with them, and this is actually written by Marcus L. Rowland, so nice to see him contributing to another magazine. Big contributor to White Dwarf back in the day. So that's, again, that's going to be sort of like a helpful but humorous article, I suspect. Angular Dreams, a scenario for 1990s Call of Cthulhu. Nice that it comes after an article by Marcus R. Rowland, since he was the one who originated the idea of modern day Cthulhu back in White Dwarf 42, 41. So we have a very modern Call of Cthulhu scenario involving Hounds of Nyarlathotep coming out of computers. So quite up to date. Section of player handouts in the middle, even going so far as to do this in a different style, different paper. And even then, you've got a handout which is actually done on this kind of dot matrix style paper that would have appeared back in the early 90s for your printers. and then we have various newspaper articles and so on. And those are quite nicely done, actually, better than I do see in some books even today, almost 30 years on. And then there we go, we've got the wrap up of the scenario. Before we get into Ruffles and Bows, an article on fashion in role-playing, interesting addition. And then at Warp Factor, looking at essentially faster than light travelling science fiction games. So it's more of a general general piece, quite short. Open a page. The art of names. How do you use names in your campaign and what that evokes. Similarly, campaign versus convention. Okay, this is looking at essentially the idea of running a campaign or running a convention game, and they're obviously two different things. Back then, there wasn't quite the role playing sort of like practice of going to conventions. They weren't quite as popular, quite as widespread, I suppose. These days, you can find a convention almost every weekend, and it's the idea not only that you can play convention games in person, you can do it online as well. And this is written by Roger Burton West, who you can look up and has his own website. Still to this day, has his own podcast. Then we have Ages of Elessar. This is looking at this is again looking at the aspect of Tolkien's Middle Earth. Primarily through the lens of Ice Crown Enterprises Middle Earth role playing. But again, this feels pertinent. We've just had the release of the One Ring second edition, so still worthy of looking up and reading just for interest. And we return to an early review with Cryomek Counterattack. So there's an article on Cryomek and so on, a bit of background and so on to the setting. So for that, and then we have a bit of fiction, I think. Just there, talking about miniatures, a bit of fiction followed by some discussion of miniatures and so on, and their use. This problematically kind of highlights the problem with these. It's sort of the photography is kind of too dark to really see the details of the miniatures, and clearly, it's in black and white. That one's been painted, and you can sort of go, that could look nice, but you can't really tell because of the quality of the photography and the fact that it's basically, it's in black and white. Spines appears to look at, past books for inspiration. Here we're looking at Philip K. Dick's works. Most obviously, more recently, we've got the Blade Runner role-playing game coming up this year. That is pertinent again. And they've got a page of two vignettes, short adventure ideas. Potential NPCs. Talking about the epic campaign, how to run one, so on, and then basically just getting to how to basically put in a classified and a bit of advertising at the end for Hobby Games Limited. So, and on the back we have an advert for Cryomek. So yeah, that is Last Province issue 1, 1992, October 1992. And I'm going to look forward to reviewing this. I do a magazine. I'm putting together a little stack of magazines that I want to review, sort of like for one weekend. And this is going to go into them because it's 30 years old. Anyway, thanks again for watching another unboxing of the Nook. If you've enjoyed this, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to see me out here in the Reading Nook and be alerted to that fact, where you'll see me with a parcel containing a book or game, or in this case some magazines, which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do hit that subscribe button down below. In the meantime, thanks again for watching another unboxing of Nook. I'll be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.